Hey guys, Jeremy Siskind here. This is my book called Playing Solo Jazz Piano. You can see it right there too. And today I want to do a bit of a deep dive into a concept that I think is generally under-taught in jazz piano, which is locked hands style comping. Something that Bill Evans uses a ton, but it's really kind of part of just about any jazz pianist's repertoire. And it's such a great way to create variety in a solo. You might have heard me talk about this in some other videos, but the concept of locked hands means that whatever rhythm and articulation your right hand is playing, your left hand is going to repeat your chord in that same rhythm and articulation. So let me demonstrate, and then we'll talk about some details. So this is Alone Together. And so this can be used, of course, when playing the melody, like I just did, play kind of a varied version of the melody, or it can be used as you're improvising. And so that, of course, gets very busy. You will hear players use this a lot if they're playing kind of more spaciously. So. Right? That really works beautifully because it thickens up the line of the melody. Now, don't get this confused with shearing voicings, closed position voicings, or drop two voicings. They are the same in that the two hands are playing together rhythmically, but the difference here is that the left hand's just repeating the same chord, regardless of what the right hand is doing. Although, we're going to find out that that's not 100% true in just a little bit. But just to demonstrate the difference, if I was playing this with like if I was playing this with closed position shearing voicings, I'd play. First of all, the right hand's playing most of the chord, and the left hand's doubling the melody, and each chord is very different depending on the melody note. So in a sense, the hands are locked together there, but that's just not quite what I'm referring to here. Here, the left hand is kind of repeating a voicing over and over again. The second thing to note at the outset is that you notice that the left hand plays with every right hand note, but sometimes there's some left hand chords that the right hand doesn't play with. And that happens if you're kind of holding over while the chords are changing, because the left hand needs to make those chord changes. So for example, if I play, and then I just hold this, the left hand kind of needs to resolve there, even if the right hand's not playing. So the left hand is allowed to make those resolutions. Usually I hear people do it pretty subtly, so that they're not jumping out at you. But absolutely, the left hand can keep those chord changes going if it's necessary. So I have a little list of topics that I want to talk about, and the first one is articulation. When I hear students first trying this style, this is the thing that gets them. Because the articulation of the left hand has to match the articulation of the right hand. But the difficult thing is that the left hand's repeating these chords, right? And when we repeat chords, if they're in eighth notes, which we're often playing, we want there to be no space in between. That's staying in the key. Don't let the key come quite all the way up before you play it again. That is the number one thing that I see go wrong with these locked hand voicings. Now, as we're doing locked hand voicings, sometimes we don't want to just repeat the same chord again and again. And so the first thing that I would advise you to try is using some sidesteps. If you haven't heard me talk about sidesteps before, it basically means that we're displacing every note of the chord by a half step. And then, it's important, we do have to resolve it back to the original chord. So if I'm playing, very cool, it sounds totally fine if I stay on D minor here. But let's see what happens if I sidestep up. It's all of a sudden a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more colorful. Now I sound like Bill Evans. Not exactly, but or I could try his two sidesteps. I honestly don't know if this is going to work. We'll see. Right, so I leapt up to a chord that was a whole step away. And now I'm kind of creating this harmonic momentum here. So sidesteps are really a part of this style because if you're just repeating that chord again and again, it thickens up the line, but it's not too interesting. But if you don't want to use a sidestep, the other tool that you have at your disposal is what I call tonicization. And this means creating really tonal progressions, usually 5-1, or it could even be 2-5-1, or circle of fifths progressions that bring you back or lead in to a chord. So let's take the same situation. I could go to an A7 in the middle. I'm in D minor, and I'm going to go. Okay, it's not that far off. Here was the sidestep. Here's the tonicization. They're slightly different, but they are different. Or I could even create a 2-5-1. So instead of just A to D, I'm going to go E half diminished to A to D. Sounds a little bit different than the sidestep. It's a subtle difference. But that's another way that you can create some movement with your within your locked hand structure. And I very much recommend using those devices. Some of you might be wondering, just anticipating questions, sidesteps could go above or below. So I could use a sidestep below. I'm a little bit skeptical that that's going to be the best choice. Don't hate it. It's got a lot of dissonant notes with that F, but you know what? It works. We could do like a kind of an enclosure thing. There's all kinds of possibilities here. So this does work both if you're playing an ensemble and if you're playing solo piano. So I'm demonstrating as though there's a bass player here because I'm really thinking about Bill Evans. But absolutely, you could play kind of more full voicings. Sharing the chords between my left hand and my right hand, and that's a great thing to learn from this book, by the way, and I have some YouTube videos out too. So it could be that your left hand, you know, I'm trying to make sure I'm playing the root and the third as well as usually the seventh in my left hand. Thicker and probably ultimately a little bit more sophisticated to play that way. locked hands can grow into shout choruses, block chords, things like this. So it's pretty common to use these locked hand textures with octaves in the right hand. Above that, in terms of thickness, is, if I can get this to work, playing octaves plus one other note. Some people really swear by having a third under the top note of the chord. Texture. I'm getting a little low here. It's really nice if you keep it in this really upper register, because I don't know if you've noticed, these keys don't have dampers. So listen. All of a sudden, that one rings, whereas this one has a damper. So if you can keep that top note here, you get the ring of the top note without the other ones ringing. And by the way, that cutoff is going to be different on different pianos. But it helps to really brighten things up. Now, it doesn't have to be a third below. Of course, you could try with a fourth below, fifth below. It could move. Right, that's a fifth below the top note. Octaves plus one note is a really popular, lovely way to go. It doesn't feel too heavy, but if you want that real big band sound, I would go with block chords, where generally I'm filling in with 2 or maybe 3 notes in between the octave. So I'll do just the right hand first. I know you can't really hear anything. With the left hand, that'll sound like. Alright, you guys, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. Bye, playing solo jazz piano, and I'll see you next time.